Well, we've been warned for months that we'll eventually have to learn to live with COVID, and now that time has arrived, with Sydney back open and the ACT and Melbourne soon to follow. Norman Swan is the presenter of the RN Health Report and the ABC's popular Coronacast. He joins us now from Sydney. Norman, good morning.
Hi Lisa, welcome back.
Thank you very much. So there's a few people asking whether we're all going to actually end up with COVID at some point, and what are the implications of that, especially if you've been vaccinated?
Well, yes, eventually we all will be infected even if we are vaccinated, because the vaccination doesn't provide complete cover. It's going to take a long time before that to happen. The immediate issue is that anybody who's unvaccinated will become infected. Sooner or later, maybe sooner, and that's an issue that people need to really consider, particularly in states like WA, South Australia, Tasmania, Queensland, where you're eventually going to open up and be exposed to the virus. So you've really got to have a sense of panic in your head, like we have in New South Wales and Victoria, that that you've got to get vaccinated and vaccinated as quickly as possible. So it's the unvaccinated people that you've got to think about, and it's getting younger and younger. I think Jerome Weimer the other day said, the COVID commander in Victoria said that I think is it the 2/3 of cases now in Victoria are under 40, 25% are under 20. In Israel, 30% are under 12. So it's going to get younger and younger. Now, that's not necessarily a cause for panic for parents, but it does mean that schools and other environments where kids are going to be exposed need to take care, and parents need to, until we get a vaccine for 5-year-olds and over, we need to cocoon kids a bit, so making sure that people are vaccinated around them. But most kids are just going to get a mild disease, and it's not something to panic about. But in terms of the question you ask about the immunisation is important. What they've shown is that if you are immunised, and so first of all, if you are immunised, you get vaccinated, you get a very mild disease. If you are vaccinated and you get the infection, it's like a booster dose, so you actually get extra immunity, and it tickles up your immune system or retrains it in a sense. So that's one advantage, but it's not something you want to expose yourself to. You're much better eventually getting a third dose of the vaccine.
OK, this next topic's interesting, Norman. 3 Scandinavian countries plus Ontario and Canada have been telling young men to get Pfizer instead of Moderna. What's driving that?
Well, there's been some evidence from Sweden. We've yet to see the evidence in detail and have it properly reviewed. I think the TGA has seen some of that evidence. I think what they found in Sweden was that Moderna is more likely than Pfizer to cause heart inflammation and the inflammation around the surface of the heart, pericarditis. So it's myocarditis and pericarditis, the technical terms. It's still a pretty mild to moderate disease. It's not something to, again, panic about. But given the signal that it's more common in younger men with Moderna than Pfizer, they've said you should shift to Pfizer. The TGA is just holding fire on that and just seeing what happens with that. It's not a big surprise. Moderna's a higher dose of the mRNA, which is probably why it gives you a slightly bigger immune response initially, but you will just wait and see. So in Sweden, Finland, Denmark, it's under 30 years old, and I think it's under 24 years old in Ontario. They're saying switch to Pfizer.
Hey, just finally, there's a study showing the risks of heart complications from the virus if you get it. What can you tell us about it?
That just puts this into perspective, and I was thinking of a study of about 3.5 million people compared to 3.5 million controls, so 3.5 million people who got infected with COVID-19 versus people who didn't, and it was just skyrocketing risk of heart attack, stroke, inflammation of the arteries once you'd had COVID-19 compared to the background. So when you compare it to the very small risk of myocarditis, and I suspect even small with Moderna, the risk of COVID-19 is much higher. I mean, admittedly, the older you are, the higher the risk, but it exists in younger people too, and it is part of that long COVID. And by the way, the NHS in Britain is now overwhelmed by people with long COVID turning up at the National Health Service for care. So hopefully we're dodging a bullet with long COVID in Australia.
Hey, Norman, before you go, as a Sydney side, did you do anything special yesterday?
Yeah, I went to work, came home, had dinner, watched telly and went to bed.
Gee, you're boring.
Still, are you still being
such an
cautious?
exciting human being to be with.
Are you still being cautious, or you just had stuff
I
on?
think a lot of people are, and I'm not going back to the gym. I think even though it's all vaccinated, you can pick up the infection and bring it out with you to other people, to the unvaccinated population. I'm just being a little bit careful at the moment. There's only a couple of weeks to go in New South Wales before it's 80%, and you can probably relax a little bit more.
We're glad it's all work and no play for Norman Swan. It means we're doing more stuff like this for our viewers.
Absolutely. I'm here for you.
Thank you, Norman.
Thanks, Norman.